wish they could be closer. We can look at one thing. But we can't tell. Almost lower, almost higher.
What do you mean I have them close?
We have two cameras here, and we have to look there and there, which is
Oh,
fine.
I see.
Which
I
is
see
fine.
What you mean. Well, happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a lovely Mother's Day, got to celebrate with their loved ones. I know I did. We had good food. We made salmon and some.
Sounds so yummy.
Yeah, it was very good, and salad.
Did your mom make it or you guys?
My
made it?
sister made it.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
She made it, and so she made like pistachio crumbs like over the salmon,
Nice.
and it was very delicious.
Wow.
But anyway, today we are going to talk about all about health, right?
Yes, the triangle of breathing,
Yes.
nutrition, and our faces, and our overall body. So there's a triangle that I don't think people have paid attention to it, that how nutrition, our breathing, and our faces are connected. And if you see, for example, if you see somebody that has beautiful facial symmetry, beautiful facial structure, you can assume that they're breathing better and they have good nutrition. And if you see the other way, it's just the opposite. And I brought a book called The Jaws to show you some pictures of what we're talking about, the importance of breathing. I would say the first pillar for facial beauty in our body is breathing. But prior to that, let me introduce Natalie. Natalie is my right hand. She's sitting on my left, but she's my right hand partner in crime at both Dr. Maryam's office, at my office, and at BLAfit. So whenever you guys connect with us, it's the two of us that read the emails, answer, and she's a personal certified trainer for BLAfit, so she'll be training your 5 minutes when you guys ever buy and meet us there. And you want to introduce me?
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Maryam, she's an amazing woman. She is a mother, she's an entrepreneur, she is a businesswoman, she's so many different things, but one of the main things that she's a board certified dentist with over 30 years of experience, specializing in TMJ, orthodontics, sleep apnea, and snore. So if this person knows anything about breathing, it's her. And so you guys have to stick around to listen to what she has to say about how breathing really affects how our facial symmetry and
facial
structure changes based off how we breathe. And I was completely blown away and fascinated when she shared this with me. So I can't wait for her to share this with you guys, because I'm a mouth breather, and so
yeah, it's mouth breathing versus nasal breathing, and it's a learned behavior. Because if you're a child, and for those mothers that have youngsters, your children, you have to pay attention. If their mouth is open while they're playing their games or doing their homework, that's the one that you need to work on immediately. You have to put effort and teach them how to do nasal breathing, and it's a learned behavior. And I will give you guys tips of how to do that. But let's first go back to basics. We're having Dr. Haas add to our group. Dr. Haas, are you coming?
Yes.
And he hasn't been sitting yet before we start our panel. Dr. Haas Sedegi is our immunologist, MD. He is the...
I'll let you tilt the camera.
Let's see if I could tilt a little
I
bit.
can come closer.
Yeah, you can
There
come a
he
little
is.
bit. There you go. He can come as close as he wants to me because he's my husband.
Hi, that's a good excuse to get close to your wife.
Yeah.
Hi, it's afterwards on Mother's Day.
So
Hello, everyone.
Dr. Haas is an MD, medical doctor, board certified anesthesiologist, board certified medical doctor, and also his PhD is in immune system. So he'll be adding on tips along the way, because in reality he practices an airway specialist. That means all about airway breathing, so, and the effect of our nasal breathing to our immune system. So we'll get him involved in that. But today's main thing for me, Natalie, is how to incorporate nasal breathing, what nasal breathing does to children as they're growing and becoming adolescents, how it affects their facial symmetry. And I want to start with, and then how nutrition also is our third pillar of our triangle. Nutrition, breathing are the most important two elements for our children to grow to have beautiful, healthy body and symmetrical faces. And if we take one of those two away, we're going to lose this beautiful faces.
Right.
So before I start, I'm going to show you a picture of what happens for those of you that can't picture why breathing has to do with the face. I'm going to bring a book. I'm going to quote this from the book. You will see the picture of a mouth. I'm going to show my TikTokers first since the audience is more. This is, you could see the patient that mouth breathes versus the one that is, Natalie, can you come and help me?
Sure.
Because it's backward. Which one is the one that
So this is going to be the mouth breather right here.
And you can see the profile of a mouth breather.
I'm sorry, this is a mouth breather. I'm so sorry.
You can see that their faces are long, and they don't have
a nice defined jawline too.
Yeah, and when they have mouth breathing, they are having chin that's retruded, it's pushed back, and they become droopy eyes, and their face becomes long. Yeah, that's why I thought that why you pointed it. So this is a mouth breather's face.
Right.
Long, droopy eyes, and these are children you see around your neighborhood or in your family that they're mouth breathing. This is what mouth breathing does. It makes your face long, droops your eyes, and it doesn't let your lower jaw come in the correct position and grow in the correct position. So it's pushed back, which creates a bad posture, which create back pain, which create instability in your spine. So kids that are wobbly in the court, and this is a nasal breather. You can see the difference in nasal breathing. And these are sketches drawn, but you can see the defined jawline. You can see how face is much more balanced and square compared to the long faces. Now, this is just one thing that you see. This affects your spine, your spinal cord. So here's my Amazon, guys. The bottom one, it's a mouth breather, faces that are long, droopy eyes, and then we've got the chin that's protruded, and the other way is somebody that's nasally breathing. And you can see how it affects your structure. So next time you see somebody with long face, you know that they're not breathing through their nose or they've never learned. And one thing that I want to ask Dr. Haas is, I don't know why in Europe we see more kids have nice balanced facial structures, and then here in our country, which is supposed to be the most developed country in the world, we're seeing more long allergy faces, asthma faces, and kids that are more sick, bad posture in general.
Practice they do in Europe, they don't pull out teeth. They pull teeth here a lot. They don't pull out teeth because when you pull out the teeth, the jaw, the mandible or maxillary, it retracts. But there's empty space and the bone retracts.
So that's what we're talking about right now. What Dr. Haas is talking about is on a developing child, if we have extraction when they're doing orthodontics, also creates that type of a face because we are retracting the jaw by pulling the teeth. So we know now we can talk about the non-extraction sometime else, but we're talking about nasal breathing alone. Why is the nasal breathing creates faces that are long? Do you have any idea?
Well, because of the airway, the oxygenation, the mouth breather, you have to use mainly the hyperpharynx, and you have to elongate the hyperpharynx so they would breathe. Air goes there, but they're sucking air in. Nasal breather, as far as immune system is concerned, it has all the advantage and benefits of when you breathe through your nose, those hairy cells, it cleans the air from all the pollen or toxin or dust or sands or whatever it is, pollution in the air, it cleans them. Two, the air when it goes through the nose has to be heated. the nasal air travel through all those nose and the
Sinuses and your frontal sinuses.
it heats it up to the body temperature and it goes there and doesn't cause any constriction of the bronchial or the arterial.
Yeah.
And that the mouth breathe, the cold air goes in with all the dust or other pollutant inside the lungs. And
Yeah, so when we're
causes-
breathing through your nose, you're breathing through your nostrils and there's hair follicles in the nose,
Yes.
and you're warming the air, the oxygen that we're breathing in. You're cleaning it, you're filtering it from all the microorganism, and then you're pushing it up in your paranasal sinuses where it turns to become nitrous oxide. Now we're producing a nitrous oxide, which is a very potent gas that could zap every bacteria, virus, and fungus that's on its way. And that's how people that breathe through their nose are healthier. They don't get sick as often. And you're closing your mouth and you're breathing through your nose in a good posture. When you're mouth breathing, Dr. Haas, you said that when you're breathing through your mouth, you're sucking the air through your mouth. Number one, you're not filtering anything, so you get more sick in your lungs. The second thing is you're making what long?
The hypopharynx.
Hypopharynx becomes long, and just that, for mouth breathing, in my opinion, there's also tongue placement. When you're mouth breathing, your tongue is not in a correct position, and it's making the palate collapse. So we have a palate that collapses. We have a hypopharynx that's becoming a long.
Right, and the
Right.
cold air goes. That cold air has to.
And then you're having now sucking cold air in, which could cause
it causes vasoconstriction.
vasoconstriction, which means
And then-
constricts all your bronchioles in your lung, and you get more sick
Yeah.
in general.
And
Where
now
is
you
our
feel-
tongue supposed to be then?
The tongue, can I answer
Yeah,
that?
sure.
Because I'm sitting in the middle
That's
and
your-
I have the loudest voice here.
That's your specialty.
Yeah, and it's my specialty. Are you talking about the tongue placement in a correct
Yes.
breathing? When we breathe through our nose, our tongue's supposed to be sitting on the palate and basically suction in the palate. So right now, if I'm sitting, I'm talking, my tongue is continuously touching the palate. But when I'm not talking, like right now you're silent, your tongue should be like sitting like that on the palate. And by doing that, you're relaxing your neck muscles because you're stretching the tongue muscles, and your digastrics becomes relaxed. So patients that have jaw pain, by putting the tongue in the palate, your jaw pain relaxes because you can't contract that muscle and create contraction in your chewing muscles. By putting the tongue in the palate and kind of like practicing suctioning it up there, you're actually stretching your digastrics, which is right here, and then it relaxes all these muscles. So, and by putting the tongue in the palate, you're actually expanding the arch. If you look at the tongue, usually it's a big muscle. And every time you swallow, if you suction it up by swallowing, you're actually expanding your upper palate. You're making your smile much more broader. You're making your tongue having much more room for resting. And the people that don't, their upper palate is very U-shaped, V-shaped, very narrow upper arch. When they smile, you only see the two front teeth, maybe the two laterals going sideways. You can't see the canines, doesn't have a broad smile, doesn't have a good facial symmetry. So those are the things that we need to teach children at young age. And I think what I wanted to ask you, why in this country we don't do as much as a good job in teaching children, I think is just our culture is so much integrated in medicine and pharmaceutical companies. We don't do too much prevention. My goal was about a decade ago is I connected with the governor, I connected with everybody to tell them we need to teach this in elementary level. We need to have the nurses look at the kids that are mouth breathers and advise the parents that they need to go to my functional therapist or my facial therapist or speech therapist or anybody that knows how to teach them where the tongue placement should be. Usually they're a speech therapist and my functional therapist. And get that kid from early age to be able to learn to have a good lip seal when they're sitting in the class so they don't get sick as much, So now we're going to have a symmetrical faces, better spine, healthier kids, much more focused kids at school. So we can just change the life of those kids. And then parents going to benefit because now we have arches that are wider, that we don't need to have extractions, we don't need to have major orthodontics done on. So this is like a prevention mode of.
And asthma too,
Yes.
they did a great reduction in asthma attack or asthma symptoms. And in the long run, economically, it saves hundreds of millions of dollars.
For the government, right? But then the pharmaceutical companies are not very happy because we've treated many children in this practice that had asthma or allergies, and they were mouth breathers, and we expanded their arch. We taught them how to do tongue placement, and most of them did not need to use any pharmaceutical medications for their asthma. And the biggest example is my own son, who Cheyenne was 3 when he had asthma and was getting sick a lot, and he was
2 years old.
2 years old, and he was a mouth breather. And the reason he was a mouth breather because I couldn't breastfeed. Now again, another thing that we can add to this is kids that are breastfed usually a majority of the cases have a very nice upper arch because of the suctioning that they take place. It pushes the tongue in the palate when they're suctioning the mother's nipple, and that expands their upper arch. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to breastfeed my son too long. I didn't have milk, and we had to rely on products that are out in the market. And even the best of those products are not mother's milk, and they have additives, and they have preservatives, and they have allergens in it. And my son was at early age, had a very narrow upper arch and wasn't able to breathe. And I knew what I had to do, but he was too young to do it. He wasn't understanding when I said, put your tongue. But at age of 5, we treated him, teaching him how to nasal breathe by putting tapes. We were advised to put tapes on his mouth. I'm not talking about tapes that you guys do, like the thieves comes to your house. But the moment I bring this up to patients, I think that moment they think that you're putting tape around your kid's mouth. No,
not
they're tapes that are called sleep mouth tapes, that they're very delicate, that Amazon sells, that you put on the kid's mouth or your mouth, and you practice relying on your nasal breathing for oxygenation. And that is a practice, and by doing that, you're learning to put the tongue in the palate and you're exercising, so you can teach this to the children. So anyways, story short, 24 years old Cheyenne now has never had to take asthma medication. He is doing very well in life, knock on the wood, and has a great jaw structure because I knew what to do. Dr. Haas knew what to do. He was lucky he was born in this family, but there's so many kids that don't. And what happens is when they're hyperactive, when he was younger, you become hyperactive. Kids that cannot breathe and there's not enough oxygen in their body, they become hyperactive. And by hyperactivity, teachers cannot stand them because the teacher has migraine and she has her own issues. And they shoot these kids to a side. They punish them, sending them to the office. And then it just rolls to
the vicious
cycle where the kid thinks that they're not good enough. They hear you're a bad kid, and it just goes around. And then either we're going to push them in society where they're not doing good, or we're actually medicating them to shut their brain so that we can continue our adult life and not be bothered. But one thing I want you guys to take today is children that they're mouth breathing and they're hyperactive. That is their survival mode. If you shut that up and they tell them, don't move so much, you're actually telling them to die. Because that movement pumps in oxygen. Can you say something on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the kids they're hyperactive, you give them oxygen. If they breathe oxygen, sit down and take 5-6 deep breaths, the oxygenation goes up, the saturation goes up, they become calm. They become relaxed. The reason they are hyperactive because of hypoxia, lack of oxygen, and too much carbon dioxide. They cannot exhale the carbon dioxide. So
you have to exhale carbon dioxide to be able to get this potent gas that causes acidity in your system out, And when they're breathing in and not really breathing out as much, it's a taught behavior. Breathing is really a learned behavior. None of us born to learn how to breathe. In fact, we're in a society that's so fast that we hardly take the moment in our daily life. Like right now, I didn't breathe. Let's take the moment and all of us take a deep breath.
It's a fast track society. You don't have time to breathe.
Yes. And I really want to expand on this. For those audience that are new, adding on, I had the pleasure of talking at TEDx, and my objection was to teach about what do you do when you're under stress. When you're under stress, when a child is under stress, when they come to my office and they're hyperactive, practice this. Grab a pen or a pencil or a tongue blade, whatever you have that they can prop in their mouth. Wipe it, clean it, and have them bite on it. And tell them to breathe through their nose for 2-3 breath cycles. Practice this with them. And then immediately you see that kid sitting in their chair and they're not moving anymore. Because now you promoted the breathing, you prop the jaw forward to open up the circulation to the brain. I'm gonna have to keep showing diagrams here repeatedly so we can remember. When you prop the jaw forward with something in their mouth, we're actually moving the jaw forward, opening the circulation. By propping the jaw forward, we're opening the circulation. And then now the brain has got great blood supply. You're breathing through your nose. You're getting great oxygen to the system. And now why would that kid be hyperactive? When we're hyperactive children, I'm a child. We're all lacking oxygen.
Yeah.
Adults, when you see us sleepy is when we're lacking oxygen. When we're not breathing, adults that are tired and they're not getting oxygen, we as adults tend to be more sleepy, sit in our chair. It's just the opposite for children. Children that cannot breathe, they're hyperactive.
Yeah, that's what I tell my patient when I do anesthesia for my patient. At the end, when I wake them up and extubate the patient after surgery, and I see they're not breathing, I tell them, hey, breathe, your life depends on it. You gotta take a deep breath.
Deep breath. Take the moment and take a deep
her
breath.
life depends on that. So they take a 2-3 deep breath, and we go to recovery.
So now we talked about breath, breathing.
Does that explain why people that mouth breathe at night, when they wake up, they still feel so tired?
Yes. And that's why now, 30 years ago, I was advocating tapes for your mouth at night. And there was people that came to my practice in Manhattan Beach and they looked at me like I'm a weirdo. But now after the book of the breath, the book The Jaws, the books that are out coming from people that believe in my philosophy, now more people are aware. And now when you go to Amazon and you put lip tapes for sleep, or just put lip tapes, you see at least 100 companies that are making these tapes they're clear, that looks like an X, some of them. You put on your lip at night, it promotes nasal breathing. Because when we get to deep sleep, we all lose control over our facial muscles at some stage of sleep. And with the tape in there, all night, you're breathing through your nose. It just promotes that. It will change the way your shape of your face is. Mm-hmm. So even on adults, like not like my age, but even on my age, if we put the tape on there, we're forced to put the tongue somewhere, and usually goes on the palate if you don't have a tongue tied or constriction because of your tongue being tight. You can actually able to stretch your tongue to the palate, then you'll be able to breathe through your nose. And I always suggest when you put your lip tapes at night, first breathe 20 deep breaths. Even with Dr. Haas at night, sometimes he forgets, and I tell him, Haas, let's breathe through our nose. So we both do deep breathing 20 times until we both don't know we're awake anymore. So stimulate yourself by starting that breath work, that exercise, and then let go. And that just keeping mindfulness on the breath work takes your mind away from all the tension you had all day, all the situations that could wait. Because if you can have a good night's sleep tomorrow, you could be solving your issues so much better. You have such clarity. And we're just relying on coffee and sugar and all these energy drinks to get going, and it's really this, that is another toxic cycle that creates other harms to our body.
I remember 20 plus years ago, 22, 23 years ago, Dr. Maryam, or 28 years ago, at home, she used to go put the regular Scotch tape
Not Scotch, it was a 3M tapes
Yeah,
for
3M
the
tape.
arms.
on Cheyenne, on our kids' mouth, while they were asleep, so they could breathe through their nose.
Yeah, but also,
And
but
now there are, you go to Amazon, there are hundreds of compounds
Yeah.
in those tapes.
Jim, one of my professors, that,
Nobody accepted her idea when she was saying, you gotta put a tape on a kid's mouth so they could breathe through their nose. It wasn't accepted by the general public.
yeah, it was like I was a weirdo doctor, but I wasn't the one that created that either. I learned from my professors in the field of airway early on when Cheyenne was sick that why didn't you put a tape on his mouth? And he recommended 3M Scotch Bond tapes that they use on when you cut your arms and you put it around like your bandage, and that doesn't pull the hair or anything, and is not really abrasive. And I used to put it on my mouth and his mouth when we were doing paintings, so that he doesn't think that he's the only one that I'm putting their mouth. And I said, sweetie, let's do breathing exercises. So both my children learned breathing exercises from young age. Every night I would go to Cheyenne's room, and then I would go to my daughter Sharzi's room, and I sat, kneeled, and after we prayed, I told him to let's do 20 deep breathing exercises, and we both close our mouth and breathe until he falls asleep. And we did the same thing with Sharzad. Even now that they're adults, they come to my house, I go past by their room, say, don't forget your breathing exercises, because it's just, we get so wrapped up in our lives that we forget that breathing is our pillar of health and well-being. You don't have to eat. I'd rather tell you to fast, do intermittent fasting, or even fast all day and just eat one meal of healthy nutrition, but breathe all day. You will live over 100. I promise you, breathing alone is all we need, and hydration, and drinking good clean water. So food, we put too much emphasis on food. Food is not really a crucial element in our life, but again, through marketing, we think automatically we have to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, but our ancestors, they were hunting for days before they had food. We didn't eat 3 meals a day, when you look back to our ancestors. It became like that after the world became more westernized. I don't think they ate 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I think they ate when they were hungry, and when they were hungry, they hunted, and they were looking for food sources. And now we think that, oh my God, I eat breakfast at 8, and I feel like in 3 hours I'm so hungry because it's lunch hour. We've made these lunch hours, dinner hours so crucial that we think that we're going to starve it to death if we missed a meal. But I'm going to let an immunologist talk about that.
Overall, nothing happens if one doesn't eat, but everything happens if you eat.
Yes.
Cancer, cholesterol, heart disease, vascular disease, ulcer, gastric disease, and even mental disease, because there's so much chemical in our food nowadays, so much preservative and all that effect that has. But nothing happens if you don't eat.
You
We
need to
survive.
make sure you're hydrated.
But if we eat,
You have to drink all day long, but eating, we're talking about eating food, consumption of food has become very, very exaggeratedly abused today in our westernized world, where we're continuously eating, and our stomach and our colon and our liver, our body doesn't have even time to take a break, and that's why we have so many ailments coming. If you don't eat, there's a less chance of you growing parasite in your body, and having high cholesterol or having clogged arteries. But if you continuously eat, and our food sources are not very sacred in this country, we have to be very careful what goes in our mouth. So it's the most important element is oxygen, and then it's our hydration, which is our water. And our water needs to be clean, and we need to make sure we're hydrated. And how long can we not eat and survive? 40 days?
Yeah, long time. I don't know exactly how many.
But-
Depends on individual.
But people have done fasting for
Yeah.
30, 40 days because if you don't eat, your body uses your own nutritional fat cells storage to break down, and then it will save that same one. So you don't even have to eat for 30, 40 days and you'll be fine. Just imagine how like after 3 hours you're like, I'm hungry.
But we're not endorsing that message.
I don't mind endorsing the message, but I'm not able to follow that myself because I'm right now doing intermittent fasting. That's something that's really prevalent nowadays. And I'm eating later today at the day and I'm just skipping one meal. So I'm having a small lunch and then I'm gonna have a smaller dinner. So I'm reducing my food intake because I was eating a big breakfast, a nice lunch, and then a very good dinner. And even though I do have a decent metabolic activity, even I'm eating very healthy and I cook everything myself, I still was I was feeling tired. Now that I'm doing intermittent fasting, I could say that I'm energetically the same. I'm not tired, but I feel lighter. I feel like I'm sleeping better. So intermittent fasting, 100% I'm advocating that.
Well, I haven't had any food since yesterday lunch.
See?
Yeah.
He hasn't
But-
had,
but
he's
because
24 hours fasted
Because I was on call.
because he was in the hospital. But in general, breathing, today's objection is breathing is very important. And then the next thing is good nutrition, selective nutrition. You want to make sure that I'm not advocating keto diet over paleo diet over vegetarian or vegan diet. You can have any diet that you want, but you have to be in moderation. We just have to remember, I always use my palm of my hand. Our food should not be more than the palm of your hand. That's how much you have to eat. So if your plates are really big and you're consuming even vegetables, a lot of it, you're expanding your stomach mass, and the next meal you're more hungry because now everything is expanded, it doesn't feel full. So, and then drinking water. Before you eat, drink a cup of water and then you feel like less needed. So we don't need too much food, what we were talking about, but we need to have very good source of food where there's no chemicals, where they're not deprived of good nutrition, when they're not processed, because processed food and sugar will also cause decay and faces that are deformed. Crowded mouths are from allergens that are in the food, so it's a vicious cycle. You can breathe and have getting decent arches, but if you are eating food that have allergens and preservative and additives and hormones, now you have those elements are clogging your nasal pathway and you can't breathe through your nose. So that's again a vicious cycle. So nutrition and breathing is very important. We need to make sure we eat clean food that are more closer to nature than any packaged processed food. Put the packaged processed food out. If you buy frozen food, I don't know about that, but the food that are kept in the refrigerator for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they have additives to be able to preserve it. They have chemicals in there that so that other pathogens in the world, or what do you say, like how like the rice they add arsenic so that rats don't get to their sources of, so like they add preservatives so that other pathogens don't get influence the food, so they could have longer shelf life. So it's just get out of the packaging, cook yourself simple foods, get back to the earth, eat things that are closest to the earth, and then you will live long and healthy.
So true.
And what's the difference between when you breathe from like your chest as opposed to breathing in from your core or your diaphragm?
Well, it's a learned breathing. We now know that breathing through your esophagus, like your diaphragm, is much more intense, and you get much more oxygen ballooning your stomach, or diaphragm more. You can inhale more than if you would use your chest. But what would your explanation be?
The chest, there are muscles between the ribs, the respiratory muscles. They contract and relax, contract, relax. So when you expand the chest, when you take a deep breath, chest expand, the diaphragm pulls the pleura down. So the chest like a air ball, it expands, air goes in, then the muscle contracts, the thoracic cage collapses, and let all the air out. So you breathe the most with the chest than with the stomach.
Yeah, so I disagree with Dr. Haas because I think that breathing through your stomach is much more productive because you get more oxygen when you breathe in. You get much more volume of oxygen in than when you breathe and you deflate your stomach. I call it stomach because it's easier for kids to understand. Mm-hmm. But when I breathe through my chest, I feel like this is better, and maybe I'm biased because I took a class called Buteyko breathing technique years ago, and they told us that in countries like Russia, when they breathe, when they have patients that are heart patients, or they had heart attack, or a lot of different ailments, in those hospitals, they teach them to breathe through their stomach and balloon their stomach out and deflate it. That gave them the most relaxation and improved their heart activity better than chest breathing. But regardless of chest or stomach breathing, esophageal breathing, nasal breathing is the most important. I don't want to add like another equation. Breathe through your nose, whatever comes comfortable. This is a learned behavior. Mm-hmm. We don't automatically breathe through our stomach. Everybody breathes through their chest. And some of us do both. Like right now I did. This raised and this raised. And both collapsed. So how do you explain that?
Because you have learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior. Teaching Buteyko breathing technique was the best. I mean, I took the class, but they teach it to doctors around the world, and you have to pay a hefty amount of money. Like I think that time was $5,000 to take the class. Oh my God. To learn, basically, after 5 days, breathe. Just put your hands on your stomach and breathe in. Inflate it and hold. So you breathe through your nose, you inflate your stomach out like a balloon. Feel that balloon because we have a lot more mass here to fill up the air. We can fill up the air here. We can fill up the air here, or we can do both. But it's best to do it here because they've shown in research that it will help improve your heart rate, calm your mind. That's how that video that you and I watched, that the guy went under the ground and swim for like a long period of time. He taught himself to breathe through his stomach and learn to hold the breath in, and that's why he was able to be underwater so long. This is a gentleman that, I don't know what country in Europe he was from, but he lost his wife and he challenged how much can he be under the water. And he was showing that he practiced the meditative breathing, which is through your esophagus. Mm-hmm. Right? Esophagus is here? You call it esophageal.
No, esophagus comes here.
But what do you call this?
Oh, those are abdomen.
Abdomen. Breathe through your abdomen. Mm. What did you say when you asked me which one is better? You said the diaphragm.
Diaphragm is the muscle under the chest.
Yes, diaphragm.
This is abdomen.
Yeah.
Abdominal muscle contracts.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the Marines are taught, right? When they have to like learn how to be.
Navy.
Yeah, the Navy. There you go. They have to be underwater for long periods of time. Mm-hmm. Like they are taught all of these things, and it just goes to show that anyone can be taught this. It's not just.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's just sitting at your table and in your room and just remembering to consciously put your arms in your, I call it stomach, and just put it on, and then even at night, and breathe in with your nose, inflate, think this is a balloon that you're filling, inflate it and hold it. I'm still holding it. And then deflate it, breathing through your mouth.
I, for one, can vouch that everything that Dr. Maryam has explained today is all a learned behavior. I used to be a patient of Dr. Maryam's years ago, and she would constantly, every single time I would come for like my monthly visit, she would tell me where I had to place my tongue because I wasn't placing it in the correct position, and I was a mouth breather. And she would always say, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. And I was so challenged doing that. I couldn't do it. It was so hard. I felt like I couldn't breathe by putting my tongue on the roof of my mouth. And I was like, this woman's crazy. I can't do this. She's trying to kill me.
Exactly.
I thought it was so hard because I couldn't breathe until I finally figured it out. And I'm so grateful that she constantly reminded me and told me how to properly breathe from my nose, where to place my tongue, because now it comes natural to me. But it took me a lot of time to practice and unlearn that behavior and learn the correct one.
I can testify that she is now, her desk is right across from my desk, and I get to see, and I check on everybody to make sure they're breathing through their nose. And I see Natalie now. At the beginning when she worked for me, she was very fidgety. She wasn't like able to sit calmly in her chair. Now I see her, at least I've seen her at times 3 hours sitting, and I see her mouth sealed, and she's so focused in what she's doing. I could sit and do this in front of her and she's not looking. So that just tells you that how nasal breathing can be learned, and that can improve our life. And I think we have another Amazon Live that we need to soon be left.
Yes, we'll have one. Yes, it's coming up.
It's coming up.
But yes, all of this is really important, and this is what Dr. Maryam has taught all of her patients. This is what she does for a living, helping people how to live healthier, longer lives by correcting their breathing techniques. And I can vouch that this has honestly changed my life. I do have to purchase mouth tape.
I have a lot. I'll bring you some.
And also, just like a quick question, what are your thoughts on people that use mouth tape to stop snoring?
That actually works too, because a lot of time, okay, so there's snorings are two kinds of snoring.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that the airway back of their throat is closed, one that they mouth breathe.
Mm.
If you close your mouth and you're able to breathe through your nose, it's going to definitely improve your snoring.
Mm.
But some of us need both an appliance that moves the jaw forward, opens the back of our airway, those that have sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
And the mouth tape is going to help improve the quality of the oxygen that goes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you breathe through your mouth, even with an appliance that opens your airway, your quality of oxygenation is not good.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can learn to breathe through our nose, now we're increasing the quality, the warming of the air that Dr. Haas talked about, the cleansing of the oxygen to nitrous oxide. So now we're getting this thing that it goes in our body that's really helpful for our immune system, versus just some air that goes to our lung, and we're taking all the air in the room without filter. So,
okay.
Does that answer that
Yes,
question?
it does. Oh, one more question. How can we incorporate breath work with BLA?
Okay, so we're here to talk about BLAfit appliance, but I think most of our day is finished. The breath, did you want me to talk about it right now?
You could do a brief description on how you
Description?
can incorporate breath work with BLA.
Just practice breathing through your nose. So when we're doing the workout, if we just focus, again, it's a learn, it's work. At the beginning, when you're doing your facial exercising device, BLAfit appliance, that I invented with Dr. Haas and an aircraft engineer together, when you're doing this facial exercising exercises with resistance to build your facial muscles, we want to incorporate nasal breathing. So we have to think while this is in our mouth, we're breathing through our nose and we're breathing out through our mouth. Again, you can do the breath in when it's open or breath in when it's closed, but I'm going to just show you what I'm comfortable with. Some of you may have it already in your house. You could grab it and just do the exercise with me. We can talk about the BLAfit appliance next time a little bit more. We were so engaged in the breath work today that we kind of lost track, but this is the exercise that calms my nervous system in a level that I can't describe, while I'm making myself more beautiful, increasing the circulation in my face, lifting my cheekbones, plumping my lips, and tightening my airway muscles, which improves the snoring as well.
So I just want to talk about what she's doing. She's inserting the handles onto her lips and grabbing onto the resistance band to prevent it from slipping. Then using both her upper and lower lip, she's bringing the handles together and shifting the lower jaw forward. Simultaneously, she's taking a nice big deep breath in from her nose. And then as she's opening back up, she's exhaling and releasing all that CO2 through her mouth. Again, taking a deep breath in from her nose, using both upper and lower lip to bring the handles together, shifting that jaw forward to help engage your neck muscles, tighten the jaws, releasing her breath through her mouth, and allowing the BLA to open her mouth back to the original starting position. So notice how slow and controlled her movement is. Notice how she's allowing the BLA to open her mouth back up as opposed to just opening abruptly. Everything is slow, controlled, focusing on the tension, focusing on the breath work.
Everything is worked out. I'm relaxed.
Excellent facial gymnastic.
Yeah, there you go. Facial gymnastics,
All
right?
these muscles feels like workout, but my brain is relaxed. So find something that do that you're working out. While you're working out anywhere in the gym, you're never relaxed. You're always tensing your muscles of your face. This exercise allows you to relax but work out facial muscles.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that could be done like that. You have to feel it until you believe it. It's just a great feeling. So I'm
And
just
how
gonna
many
lay
times
back.
a day do you have to do that?
I would say for beginners, at least a minute a day, which is about 3 to 5 vertical repetition, 3 to 5 horizontal repetition, which takes less than a minute. And then you can add to it. There's days that Natalie does 5 minutes a day because she's training 5 people in a day.
Right.
But 1 minute is where our clinical research study was based on. I've done it. I usually do 1 minute like this time, and then 1 minute before sleep to just get my mind and my brain and my body relaxed, ready to go to deep sleep. Dr. Haas has one by his bed.
Yeah.
I don't know how often Dr. Haas does his.
When I'm home, I use it. When I'm not home,
Yeah.
I wasn't home last night.
But his using is to get. Can I show?
Sure.
He noticed that we're doing it and he's getting a little jowls, and he's trying to get that jowls tightened
Yeah,
up.
it decreases. I've observed that when I use it since about a couple of months ago, it decreases.
Yeah, it's
So
really
that's
improved
nice.
a lot. But he's not a consistent user. Usually our male patients are not consistent users, but
Not very compliant.
I think we're good to go.
And
And we,
good to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Maryam and Dr.
Thank you.
Haas,
Thank you, honey, for being here.
That was a nice live, because normally we always talk about the BLA, but it was
Yeah.
nice to inform our audience about other things outside of the BLA. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you guys
thank
both
you.
being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Natalie.
See
We'll
you
see
next
you guys
week.
next week. And then we end.
What's the time?
It's 10:23.